So if you're struggling to catch bass, this is a video you don't want to miss. In this video, I'm going to break down the 3 best baits for beginners to catch more bass in any situation that you run across. Whether you're a pond fisherman, a river fisherman, or a lake fisherman, these baits are going to help you increase the number of fish that you catch. So the beauty of these 3 baits is that you don't have to be an expert to throw any of them. So bait number 1 is going to be a Senko. This is a Gary Yamamoto 5-inch Senko, one of the best bass fishing baits ever invented. And it's super simple to throw. Generally, you can just cast it out and leave it sink. And that's honestly all there is to it. You can throw it out, cast it, let it sink, and those fish just absolutely come unglued on it. And whether you're in windy, calm, rainy, sunny, it doesn't matter. They always seem to eat this bait. The 3 colors that I like to throw it in are this green pumpkin. This is green pumpkin, green and purple flake, one of my all-time go-tos. You can throw it in black and blue is another great option. And then if you're in a very clear situation, you can also throw it in a natural shad if you're around a lot of bait fish. This is a great bait to give to kids. This is a great bait just to throw to get bit, because it will catch bass that are 3 inches long, and it will catch bass that are 15 pounds. It literally is just a bass catching machine. But there's a couple different ways that I like to rig it that I would like to show you, so that way when you get out there, you know what to throw. So the first way you rig it is called Wacky Rig. And when you Wacky Rig it, you simply put a hook through the middle of that bait. And what will happen is that bait will have a nice natural fall where it will shimmy down, and the 2 ends where the hook isn't kind of bow up, and it just shimmies super natural. And it just has a great fall rate, and that's why they eat it. Now when you're fishing a Senko, you can simply put that hook through the middle, but you're gonna lose a lot more Senkos that way. So one thing that they've come out with is actually an O-ring tool. And you'll see I have O-rings here on the back side of it, and what you do is you put your worm into the tube like so, slide one of these O-rings down, and then you slide it down into the middle of the bait. And so then what you can do is put your hook underneath of this O-ring like so. So then that way you're not through the bait, you're just through the O-ring, and so when you hook a fish, it will just slide up your line instead of flying off. So that way you go through a lot less baits, because the Yamamotos can be pretty expensive. Walmart actually has the cheapest ones, but I will have a Fish USA link below where they also are extremely cheap. But this O-ring is going to save you a lot of worms, and it's going to make it easier to get back in there to catch more fish faster. If you're fishing around a lot of grass, however, you might want to Texas rig this bait. And how you Texas rig this bait is you take an EWG hook or an offset worm hook, and you insert it through the nose, down to the bend of the hook, then you pull it out, slide your bait up to the eye of the hook, like so. You turn your hook around so it's facing the worm, the hook point is facing the worm, and then you put that hook through the worm. And that will keep it weedless so that you can fish it around grass, around lily pads, cattails, rock, it doesn't matter. That is a great way to rig that bait. And when you rig it like this, you can also twitch that bait almost like you would fish a fluke or any other kind of moving bait, because it will make that bait dart and dive around, and that is another great option to get bit. So a Senko is super easy to fish. Like I said, most of the time, you just cast it out, close your bail, and let that bait sink to the bottom. And a lot of times your bites are going to come as soon as that bait is falling. But if you don't get a bite on that initial fall, you simply twitch it up, let it flutter back down. Twitch it up, let it flutter back down. And that's honestly the best way to use it. And you can fish it from the top of the water column all the way to the bottom. The bait is probably most effective in that 1 to 7 foot range though. Typically in that shallower water is where it is best, but it also does amazing out deeper, but it takes a little bit of time to get deeper. So you can put a Nico weight in it or do a lot of different things to get it deeper, but it is one of those baits that catches fish all the way down to the bottom. But the key is the retrieve is hopping it up and letting it fall back down to get that nice natural fall, because that's when those fish are really going to want to eat it. There's a few different Senkos that I like to throw, and I will have those linked down below as well. I like a Strike King shimmy stick when I'm fishing shallower water in that 1 to 3, and then I like that Gary Yamamoto when I'm fishing that 3 foot and deeper, because a Gary Yamamoto has a higher salt content, which makes it sink faster, whereas the shimmy stick tends to sink slower. So I like to fish it shallower to give myself a chance to catch more fish with that bait. There's all kinds of different Senkos out there on the market though, or stick baits as you want to call them. All of them are good, but there's a few of them that are great, and then I'll have those ones linked down below specifically so you know which ones you're getting, and you know how, so you can get the best baits to go out there with. Now that leads me perfectly into bait number 2, which is going to be a fluke. A fluke is a great bait fish imitator that catches fish no matter where you're at. Whether they're smallmouth, largemouth, spotted bass, doesn't matter. What you can do with this bait is there's 2 different ways you can rig it. So the fluke fishes a lot like a Senko. It has a great natural fall rate, so you can either twitch it to get it to move and act like a bait fish, or you can simply cast it out and let it fall. You can fish it slow, fish it fast, and it just does a great job at catching fish, because when you move it, it has a great erratic reaction, and when you don't, it has a great shimmy as it falls down. Now the way most people rig this is going to be Texas rigged. So to Texas rig this, all you do is the exact same thing you did with the Senko. Insert it to the bend, poke it out, slide it up to the eye of the hook like so, and then measure that out and insert that hook like so. Because then what you can do is called Tex pose it, where you insert that hook, and now that bait is super weedless and you can fish it around grass. But if you find yourself missing fish with the bait rigged like this, what you're going to want to do is nose rig that bait. And so you could either straight nose rig it without anything in there, like that, which you'll catch a lot more fish, but you'll lose a lot of baits. Or you can rig it with a screw lock, like we have here. And all you do for that is insert that into the nose, and then you screw this little deal into the nose of the bait, like so. And then what you can do is actually put your hook through the end of that and tighten that up. Because now what that's going to do is that's going to give your hook more holding power in that bait, and it's going to let you throw less baits off, so you won't burn through as many baits as you typically would without that in there. That is one of the greatest ways to rig that, especially if you're throwing it on a spinning rod. Your hookup ratio will go through the roof with that bait. Now there's a bunch of different types of hooks that I talked about with fishing a fluke, but one that Z-Man recently came out with is called the ZWG, and it's actually a revolutionary hook in this product, because what it does is it actually has a couple different features that are going to make fluke fishing way better for you. First things first is they actually have a belly weight on them, a light belly weight. They have it from a 1/16 all the way up to 3/16, I believe. And so you can fish those flukes in a lot of different depth ranges now instead of just fishing them shallow. And then they also have a keeper on the nose of it and a keeper on the back side of it. And I know what you're thinking, why would you have a keeper on the back side of it? Well, because now when you rig a fluke, as you rig it, what you can now do is this keeper on the front is going to keep the nose of that bait up at the nose at all times. And so instead of your bait sliding down all the time, it really locks it in place. And then this little rubber peg on the back side of it keeps the bait from sliding down on the back end of it. So it just keeps your fluke straight for a lot longer, which is going to get a lot more use out of that fluke and increase the amount of fish you can catch on one fluke compared to your traditional style hooks. Now when it comes to colors of flukes, there's a few different colors that I really like to throw. A couple of the original ones that I like is you can go with that original white or a natural shad color, and then a green pumpkin. Those are going to be your 2 go-to workhorses, because it just looks like a bait fish. This looks more like a bluegill, and it's just a very natural color. And so those ones tend to be your go-to colors that are going to get bit no matter what. A couple off-the-wall colors, if you're fishing for smallmouth or spotted bass or extremely clear water, are going to be this chartreuse color, which is actually called Siren, and then a bubblegum color. And I know they look ridiculous, but they actually get a lot of bites and actually get a lot of fish, because what they do is, because they are so bright and they stand out so well, those fish really can track the movement of the erratic reaction of a fluke that it has going through the water way better than they can any of the other colors, and so it really triggers those fish a lot easier. So bait number 3 is a Texas rigged craw. This is one of the best baits to catch bass, period. Because you have a natural craw right on the bottom, you can change out this size weight and you can fish it around every kind of cover, whether you're fishing open rocky bottom or you're fishing around heavy cattails, pondweed. Any kind of cover is going to be good for this craw. Now the one thing you have to take into consideration is whether you peg this weight or whether you let it slide freely like that. Because when you let it slide freely, your weight is going to fall first, and then it will give your craw a nice natural fall to the bottom. The only time you want to peg your craw is if you're fishing around vegetation. So if you're making a cast and you want your bait to go through something, like if you're fishing around cattails or any grass that's along the top, that's when you'd want to peg this, because what that'll do is that'll actually let your bait stay together and fall together so nothing gets caught in a different angle when it's on the surface. Now, the beauty of fishing a Texas rig is that you have a removable weight on the nose of it. And so the bait and the hook will always stay the same, but you can change how heavy of a weight you have up front. So you can fish a 16th ounce bullet weight when you're fishing really, really shallow, if you're fishing a shallow pond or a shallow river or something. But you can also put a 3/4, a 1 ounce, an ounce and a half for the deeper water you get into. And so in the summertime, like we have now, if you're fishing in ponds and you want to get it to the bottom out in the middle, you can put a 1/2 ounce or 3/4 ounce weight to get it down deeper faster without changing anything on the back end of it. So if you have a 6 size weights and you know your favorite hooks and some of the good plastics that go with it, you can really cover every water depth almost. Now, there's a few baits that work extremely good on a Texas rig. You'll see right here I have a Z-Man Palmetto Bug, which is your beaver or your cross style bait, which is the first kind of bait that I love to throw on a Texas rig and is usually my go-to. The next is going to be worms, whether you're throwing a 5-inch Senko, a 4-inch Senko, or your big ribbon tail worms. Those are another great option for the summertime specifically. As those fish get out deeper, throwing some of those bigger worms is a great way to get some bigger bites and to cover some of that deeper water where those fish tend to be lurking in the summertime. But cross style baits and worm style baits are my go-tos when it comes to fishing a Texas rig. So we're going to keep the Bible verses going at the end of the videos, just like we always do, but those are the best 3 baits for beginner bass fishermen. If you have any questions on it, throw the comment down below and I will get back to it as soon as possible. But the Bible verse that I want to talk about today is Psalm 37, 23 through 24. And it says, "The Lord makes firm the steps of the one who delights in him. Though he may stumble, he will not fall, for the Lord upholds him with his hand." And what that really talks about is trusting the Lord with what you do and believing in him, because he's going to be there for you when nothing else is going right. The Lord is going to have his hand on you and is going to be guiding you through life. So put your faith in the Lord and he will never leave your side. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button to follow along. Like and share this video for your friends. But thank you guys so much for watching. God bless, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next video.